Hey everybody, this is Laurie Meyer from stampedgreetings.com, and I want to welcome you back to our stamp club. I hope you have enjoyed some of the videos you've been watching, and I really hope you like the project for today. This is a great way to use designer series paper, and be honest, because I know that you have some in your stash that you probably don't want to cut, don't want to use. Trust me, you just need to get it out. You need to use it because you're going to be able to make some beautiful cards. This is a fun fold design, and I want to show you how it works. It is just absolutely gorgeous. I will move one of these out of the way and show you that it will definitely stand up on its own. It is pretty quick and easy, but in my opinion, it still has a wow factor that is very visible in the design. And I think anybody would be thrilled to receive this as a Christmas card. Obviously, just like every other card that we make, the occasion can be changed for anything. I mean, think of this as a gorgeous birthday card or a get well card. I have a wedding. One of our nephews is getting married in a couple of weeks, and I just think it would be a very fun design for a wedding card as well. Before I get into the details of how to make this card, I wanted to show you the inspiration that I had to change up a design and do it in designer series paper. I know many of you are familiar with Connie Stewart. She is a brilliant stamper. She's part of the Creative 8 team, and I've participated in a lot of Creative 8s. A couple of our Stamp Club members introduced us to Creative 8 a few years ago, and I've really been impressed with them ever since. And if you check out Connie Stewart's blog, you will find the instructions on how to make a card that looks like this. It's made out of cardstock rather than designer series paper, but you can see that it is very similar. The way it folds, the mechanism that actually allows it to move is honestly identical to what I used. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to change from cardstock into designer series paper. And I'll tell you why. There were a couple of reasons. One is that when this card is made, and it's beautiful and it fits into an envelope, so I'm not saying anything negative, it's just a little bit thick. There are 5 layers of cardstock that are involved in that. So I wanted to see if I could use the same kind of design and make it just that little bit thinner. I also wanted to see if I could make this just a little bit different size. So this is actually 5.5 standard A2 size. And then the diameter here, the width is 4 inches rather than the 4.25, which we use typically when we're doing an A2 card. But I love this design. And when I post this video on YouTube, I will put a link into the original post that Connie had, because you really need to see what she did. It is definitely worth watching. And I think you're going to get inspired to make these cards as well. They're just gorgeous. But let's jump in, and I'm going to show you how to make a card with that design, but we're going to use designer series paper. I'm going to, first of all, tell you the designer series paper that I'm going to use. And it is from the current holiday catalog. It is stunning. It's called Painted Christmas. And the actual designs in Painted Christmas are everything that you would want for different images for the holidays. You've got berries, pine cones, evergreen, beautiful colors. And this was so popular last year that it got brought back this year. And I just love this paper so much that I decided that I would use it to make these cards. And that is the collection that I used for both of these cards. And I am going to just jump in. I'm going to jump in and show you the different steps that you're going to need to take. First thing you're going to do is grab your paper trimmer. Also get a piece of designer series paper. And I chose one from the Painted Christmas collection. I wanted to have one that was pretty bold as far as the colors, and it's definitely a different piece than the other two that I've already used, but it will be a great example because you'll see another piece of designer series paper that's being used. And what we're going to do is we're going to treat this as our card base. Now, a couple of things, and you guys know this. If you have a piece of designer series paper that has a design that is a design that goes in a particular direction, when you cut your paper, you need to be mindful of that. I'm going to show you what I mean by pulling out a piece of old designer series paper. These penguins just make me smile. And I'm going to cut this piece, and then I'm going to come back and cut the other piece. But I wanted to show you, if you have a pattern, and obviously you want your penguins to be standing up on the finished card, what you're going to do is you're going to move that paper 90 degrees. I do it to the left. You're going to put it into your paper trimmer, and we're going to cut that paper at 5.5. So put it in and cut it at 5.5. All right. And I will be making one of these cards with this paper, so I'm not going to be wasting it, but I'm going to go ahead and put that one off to the side. I just wanted to show you how to orient your paper if you want it to have that vertical pattern. So now I'm just going to go back, and I'm going to put in the piece from the Painted Christmas, and I'm cutting this at 5.5. All right. So I have my piece of 5.5 by 12. This is where we're starting. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make the score line for this hinge right here, because we want our card to end up being 4.25 by 5.5. All right. So I'm going to grab my scoring board, and we will go ahead and make that score line. And I am going to bring my little penguins back in because it's easier to see this if I have a piece that has a vertical pattern. What I want to do is I want to put my score line in 4.25 inches from the right. My way of doing this is I'm going to turn this completely upside down, and I'm going to do 4.25 from this side. It ends up being the same thing, but I don't have to really think that hard. And mathematically, I'm not challenging my brain too much. So turn your paper. If you have a vertical pattern, turn it completely upside down and score it at 4.25. All right. And I'm going to do the piece that I'm really going to use for my card. I'm just going to put that in. This doesn't really have a vertical up or down, so it does not matter. So I'm just coming in at 4.25, and I'm going to score down. You may be wondering why I do that little start at the top. I like to find the groove before I commit myself to going too far on that score line. That helps me from jumping from one to the other and putting an additional score line where I don't want it. All right, so we have our score line in there. And now we need to do a little bit more scoring. Now I have an embarrassing thing to confess here. And let me show you why I have an embarrassing thing to confess. On the original card, we put the score line in at 4. And then it was really easy with the measurements in the cardstock to figure out where to put the additional 3 score lines, because we wanted to have quarters. We wanted to have equal distances between those score lines. Well, I was really challenged, and I'm pretty good at math. I enjoy math. So we'll do math here for a minute. We've got 12 inches. If I take off 4 1/4, that leaves me with 7 3/4. 7 3/4 is not an easy number to divide into quarters on a scoring board. And honest to goodness, I laid awake a couple of nights thinking, how am I going to do this? And I finally figured out I don't need a scoring board. All I'm going to do is fold this in half. So what I'm going to do, first of all, to get my marking of where I'm going to fold things, it was an embarrassing moment, is I'm just going to burnish where I put that first score line. So remember, this is at 4 1/4. Well, what we need to do is we need to, for this remaining part, this is what's remaining where I've got that W. I need to fold it in half because I need to get this score line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it, and this is the long end. And I'm going to take that end and I'm just going to put it right up against that score line, that burnished line that I have. And I'm going to fold it. Miracle of miracles, that's in half. And it doesn't matter what the measurement is. It really, really, really doesn't, because it's in half. So brilliant. So we have our score line at the halfway mark. Now we need the other two. And we need to fold them in the opposite direction. So that means that between the edge of this paper and that score that I just made, I need to make another score, and I need to make that one in half. So I'm going to take the end, I'm going to bring it up, I'm going to stick it right at the edge, and miracle of miracles, that's also at the halfway point. No stress, no scoring board, life is easy. Wow, so we have 2 of the 3. Now we need to get that third one right in here. All right, that means that we're going to go halfway in between that score line and that score line. So the way I figured is the easiest way is just kind of hold everything together here. And then, oh my goodness, again, I know I'm getting a little ridiculous here. We're going to put it right at the halfway, or right up to that the crease. And there we go. So here we have the base of our card. And I just encourage you to give it a really nice burnish. You want those creases to be really well done. And you've got the beginning of your card. Now think about this. Think about how brilliant and how simple this is. Let's say that I have a piece of designer series paper and maybe I wanted to do a 5x7. You can do that. Rather than cut this to be 5.5, when you do that first cut it to be 7. You'll have it as 7x12. Rather than put that first score line in at 4 1/4, put it in at 5. You're going to have a base that would be 5x7, and then take the excess part, fold it in half, and then fold it in half twice again. 6x6, whatever size you want, you can make that work. So we've got our base. We have, in this case, the exact same thing with the pine cone paper. So what have we got left? Well, we need to get some color cardstock that looks nice with whatever design we've chosen in the designer series paper. We also, in this case, I'm using some basic white because I want to have some really pretty kind of offset to the colors that I'm using. And I'm going to show you how I cut those. So I'm going to grab my cutting board one more time. And I'm going to grab those pieces of cardstock. And in this case, because I'm using a very bold pattern, and the red in here, this is real red, it's kind of subtle. It's the berries. There's more green than red. I really wanted to pull the red out. I wanted to have a little bit more red oomph in that. So I chose to use Real Red as the color cardstock that I'm going to be putting in. And I'm also going to, again, use some basic white. We all know that in some of the designer series paper collections, the sort of background color could be a basic white. It could be a very vanilla. So take a look at your cardstock or your designer series paper and choose kind of a neutral color. We are going to cut out 2 pieces of color cardstock for the card. The first one that I'm going to cut out is the one that we're going to use that will be the piece on the front and on the inside. And that is going to measure 3 by 6. So 3 by 6. And the way that I suggest that you do that cut so that you don't use more paper than you need is when you put your cardstock into your paper trimmer, put it so the 8.5 inch side is snug up against the ruler, and put that at your 3 inch mark. And you're going to cut that, and you're going to end up with a piece that is 3 by 11. And then I'm going to take that piece and I'm just going to cut it into, I'm going to end up with 3 pieces. 2 I will use, 1 will be extra. So 1 is going to be 3 by 6. So I'm just going to come in and cut that to 3 by 6. And then the other piece, I'm going to trim so that I get a 3 by 3. So 3 inch square piece. And I'm going to be left with a piece. I'm not using this on this card, but I definitely will keep that. And those are the 2 pieces of color cardstock that I'm going to need for this card. Now on the piece for the white, and in my case, it is basic white. Let's look at the example. We're going to need a couple of pieces. We're going to need one that will go on the front, one that will go on the inside, one that is actually on the back here. So it's a frame around the inside sentiment. And then what I decided to do is on the back, I put another piece where I will have the option to write my greeting. I didn't want to overwhelm this. I thought it would be really pretty standing. And I thought it would be nice to have the greeting on, or the sentiment on the back. So we need 4 pieces. We need 2 for our stamped images, 1 for behind the image in the middle, and 1 for the back. The inside behind the sentiment and the back are the same size. They're both 5 by 3 3/4, 3 3/4, 5 by 3 3/4. So I'm putting my piece of basic white in on the 11 inch side, and I'm going to cut that to 5 inches. And then I'm going to use this piece to make both of the pieces at 3 3/4. So I'm going to end up with 2 pieces that each measure 5 by 3 3/4. And it's just a nice size because it will allow that designer series paper to be seen around the edges and still have a really nice colorful card. So 2 of these. And then the other 2 pieces are going to be just a little bit smaller than the size of the color cardstock that we cut. And you remember that if we look at this one, this color cardstock piece, that was 3 by 3. So we need 2 pieces that are going to be 2 3/4 inch squared. And it's really nice because with the remaining piece of your basic white, you can put that in on the shorter side. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that at 3 3/4. Sorry, 2 3/4, 2 3/4, and cut again at 2 3/4 to get a little square, and another 2 3/4 for my second square. So there's not a lot of paper involved in these cards. And when you check out the video that Connie Stewart put together, you will see that for the cards that she had using the color cardstock, she has a fabulous way of cutting 3 pieces of cardstock and not wasting much at all to get 2 cards out of those 3 pieces. So here are the pieces that we're going to need. We've already put together our designer series paper. We have 2 pieces of basic white 5 by 3 1/4, same size. We have 2 pieces of basic white. These are 2 3/4 square. We also have 2 pieces of color cardstock. One is 6 by 3. The other is a 3-inch square. We need to do a little bit more scoring before we can really start in on putting the card together. And that is going to involve scoring that 6 by 3 in half. So obviously that means on the 6-inch line that I'm going to go ahead and score that at 3 inches. And while I have this in my scoring board, I'm going to do one other thing. And you'll notice that I did do a little too much on that scoring. And what you can do if you do that, there's no mistake in card making. It's just an opportunity to make things look good, is I can press that up a little bit. And when I put the stamp sentiment on, no one is going to be the wiser. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but when I showed the sample card, there's some scoring that is on this piece. I wanted to put just a little bit of design on that back part of the color cardstock. And I'm going to show you very quickly how I did that while I have this in the scoring board. And I'm simply going to start over on the right. You can see we're at 6 inches. I'm going to come in 1/8 and score. And then I'm going to skip to the, not the next 1/8, but over 1. So I'm skipping 1 and I'm going to score. Skipping 1 and score. And I'm just going to do that all the way over until I get to the middle of the card. And what's going to be nice is where I actually made that little oops in my scoring, it's going to go away. Then I'm just going to flip this over and I'm going to fill in between. So in between these 2 score lines, I'm just going to use my scoring board and fill in those gaps. And it's just a nice little touch. And it's, as you can see, pretty quick. It looks like an embossed piece without having gone through the embossing folder. All right, so that piece is ready to go. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to start putting the card together. So the first thing you're going to need to figure out is what kinds of sentiments you want to stamp on your pieces. And you're going to stamp on the 2 3/4 pieces. I chose to use a couple of the stamps from the Merriest Moments stamp set. And if you have been watching or participating in our stamp clubs recently, you're going to know that I've been using this stamp set quite a bit. And what's really ironic about that is I bought this last year and I didn't use it until this year. So I used a Joyful Christmas to You and Yours for the front. And then on the inside, I thought Thinking of You this festive season was really nice and just added a little bit more interest. And I'm going to be honest, I cheated because I didn't want you to be absolutely bored watching me stamp. So I have, through the magic of YouTube, I have already gone ahead and I have stamped those 2. And I did use my Stamparatus because I wanted to get them as centered as I could. and it is up to you how you do that. And I wanted to mimic the color of the cardstock that I'm going to use for the card. So this ink is real red, and it really pulls out that color. Okay, so those are stamped. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do just a teeny bit of scoring around these pieces. And again, I'm not sure how easily this is seen on camera, but I did just a teeny bit of scoring because I wanted this to be more than a plain sheet of basic white. I wanted it to have a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of elegance. And it is very similar to what I just did on the piece of cardstock. And these are very quick. So I'm just going to put that piece right up into the corner. I'm going to go, you can see it's 2 3/4. So I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch over, and I'm going to score. I'm going to move that whichever direction you want, right or left. And I'm going to come in and do the same thing and just continue to rotate and do that score line at 1/8 of an inch back. Then I'm going to flip this piece so that I can see those score lines that I just made. And I'm going to go 1/8 inch further into the card. So this is where I scored before. I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch over and just score again. And what's really nice, and you'll see this when you do it in person, is it makes a little cross with those score lines. And I think it looks elegant. See if I can show this on camera. It is really nice. It just has this really cool little cross right at the point where you score. And I'm going to do this one really quickly as well. This is one of those, I don't know if it's a trick. I think it's just a realization that we don't have to have a lot of different tools to add some real interest to our cards, because there are some very easy ways that we can make things look more exciting, that there's something going on besides stamping and paper. And I just, kind of encourage you to look at the tools that you have and think about how you might be able to use them a little differently than you normally would. All right, so we have those two done as well. So just a nice little elegant touch. While I have this out, I'm going to do one more thing, and it's very obvious when you see it on the inside. That back piece of white has the same kind of embossed lines. This is one of the ones that is 5 by 3 3/4, and I'm doing the exact same thing. So nothing different. You do not need to do this unless you want to the piece that is going to go on the back of your card. I'm choosing not to, and I'm just going to leave that kind of pretty plain, because that will give me a little bit more room to write what I want to for the Christmas cards. And I'm really excited to try this design on multiple kinds of cards. I think it will be really perfect. And I'm going to be really excited to try different sizes. I think that 5 by 7, you can see I'm talking and I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing here. That 5 by 7 will be a lot of fun as well to try. All right, so we have that done as well. So that is all of our scoring. That is all of the stamping. So now we're at the point where we can put this together. And I'm going to show you what I recommend as the order to put this together. The first thing I am going to do is I am going to attach the piece that is 5 by 3 3/4 to the inside back of the card. And again, nothing magic, just using some Tombow glue. You know me well enough. I like Tombow. I know everyone has a preference on adhesive, and this is definitely mine. I'm trying to eyeball where I have that score line so I can get this as centered as possible. What's nice with designer series paper is that it's forgiving. If you don't have this absolutely centered, you probably won't even notice it. And I'm just going to turn this a couple of different ways and make sure that when I'm looking at it, at least it looks like it's pretty straight. And then I'll turn it over and give it a little bit of a burnish with my hand. All right, so we have the back piece attached. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on the front piece, and it's going to be on this piece of cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and fold this and burnish it. I don't need to burnish it really hard because it is going to bend pretty easily when that card is folded, and it will stay pretty sturdy. And then I'm going to take the sentiment that I'm going to have on the front of my card, and I'm going to mimic the way that I did these. I'm just going to go ahead and adhere that to the center of that piece. And again, I'll use some of my Tombow. And remember, when you're putting this on, it's kind of counterintuitive. It's almost like you're putting it on the back of the card. But if you did put those score lines on the other side, you will know that you want to put it on the side that you did not score. And again, I'm just trying to get it even-ish and let that go. Okay. And I'm also going to attach the inside sentiment using the same one to the color cardstock. And what that is going to mean, obviously, is to attach these two pieces together. Now, you could, if you want, it might be interesting too, use two colors of cardstock, one on the inside, one on the outside. That could be kind of interesting, especially if you have a lot of different colors in your designer series paper. That would really help you bring out some of those different colors. Just try to get this as centered as I can as well. All right, and now we're going to start kind of putting things together. So what we want to end up with is we want our piece that is 3 by 6 attached to the folding front, and we want the piece that is on the inside to be as centered as we can get it on the inside. Here's my tip. I recommend that you take the inside piece and you lay it down. We're not going to attach this right now. We're dry fitting it. We're just seeing where it might be. Don't get hung up on if it's perfect vertically unless you want it to be perfect vertically. I don't. And the reason is I want to have a little bit more space down here so that I can put some embellishments. Don't get hung up on that. But what I'm paying attention to is I'm trying to get it so that it's sort of kind of in between those score lines. And I'm going to be using this as a guide. All right, so I'm going to lie that down and I'm going to just let it go. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, but it's perfect enough. And then I'm going to turn this. I'm a right-handed person and I do better with my right hand. And what I'm going to do is I'm taking the piece that's going to go on the front and I'm just going to fold that up and I'm going to try to put that right on the top. And I can cheat because I can put those pieces together and I can actually lay them down together as well. So I'm trying to kind of layer this all up. And then I'm going to open the top. And it is now where I want it to be for me to glue that, right? So I'm going to pull the front of the card down and I'm going to put glue right here because I'm going to glue the front of the card to where I want it to be. And I'm just going to put a little bit. Be mindful where you're putting the glue. This piece is not going to go all the way to the edge. So you don't want to put glue anywhere other than where this colored cardstock is going to hit the designer series paper. You don't need a lot of glue. You don't need to put it all under where that color cardstock is going to be. You just need to kind of tack it down. And you can do this little double check and make sure that things look pretty straight. So we've got the front. The front is attached. Now what we need to do is attach the back. Okay. So we're going to take the card and we're just going to fold it over like that. The front is already attached. So because the front is attached, we can easily attach the back. So I just put some glue right in here. I know that my color cardstock is going to cover that. I don't care that I don't have glue under here. It's all going to be fine. It's all going to hold. And that is now attached. The last thing that I need to do for the paper is I want to attach this piece in my right hand onto the back of this card, but I want to get it so that when the card is closed, you don't see that back piece, that it's perfectly aligned with the front. And there's an easy way to do this. Make sure you know what side is up. That's the side that's up. Put that piece right on top of the piece that you just glued down, so the one that's in the back. Double check that you have it oriented the right way. And then you're going to put some glue on that piece. And this time, put a little bit more glue. This whole piece, all of this designer or all of the cardstock is eventually going to get glued down. And then kind of hold it and try to keep it aligned. And don't worry, you're going to have a chance to move it if you need to. So hold it down and then just bring that back piece up and put it on the top. And then you can turn it over and you can still move it if you need to. But you're going to get it so that it's right behind and it's really easily aligned. All right. That is the basics of this card. And then it's all about bling. It's all about how you want to finish it off. And I want to show you, and I will show you how I finish these off, but I want to show you these cards kind of side by side. Let's quickly, really quickly, talk about the similarities and the differences. And again, this is I always feel like I'm confessing to you guys, but I am. When I was trying to figure out how I was going to make the card with the designer series paper, I started by taking a piece of basic white and stamping. And it was beautiful. And I put it on the card and I thought, oh, wow, that is way too busy. There was too much because I've got the designer series paper. I didn't need a whole mess of design. Whereas on this card, because it is so elegant, and it's elegant because there's beautiful color in the background, it's really nice to have some stamped images. So it's kind of a trade-off. The cardstock with the stamped images, the designer series paper with less stamping, more sentiments, and more design on the actual piece that has the sentiment, and then taking it up a notch maybe on the embellishments. So let me tell you what I did on the embellishments. I took some of the Simply Elegant trim. Love this. It is gorgeous. I made a double bow out of it. I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. And I also decided that I wanted to use some of these flat Jingle Bell trinkets. I hadn't used these until I used them on the cards that I made for today. They are fun. They're really nice. They're very sturdy, but what's also really cool is they're flat. So they are going to fit into an envelope incredibly well. And I am a Paper Pumpkin subscriber. So in my stash, I have these larger than normal glue dots. And I thought, that's perfect. So I pulled out my larger than normal glue dots. I'm not a big glue dot person, as you know, but these worked beautifully. And just put one behind a little jingle bell. And these are adorable. Put that onto my card. Grabbed another one. I know you see where we're going here. And put that at a little bit of an angle against that first jingle bell. Just wanted to give it some kind of fun. And then I put the bow over the top of those two. And the way that I got that bow to stay was I got out my shimmering crystal effects. I love this, and it works brilliantly as an adhesive, especially if you have something bulky like this. And the beauty is that when it dries, you also get a gorgeous shimmer, if you can even see where the glue is. And it works incredibly well. When it's glued on with this, it is going nowhere. So I went ahead and I put this right down on my bells. And then in order for that to dry, because that will take a couple minutes to dry, I actually got a clear block. And I just put that clear block right over the top and allowed it to dry. And as you can see, I'm trying to move that and it is not going anywhere. I'm just going to put that one right out of the way for a moment. And then the last thing to finish off these cards is to use any bling that you want to. So these were done the exact same way, just two different colors of the Simply Elegant trim. And this is trim that works really well for tying bows. Even though it's a little bit more substantial, it still works incredibly well for the bows. And then for my bling, I got out a couple of different kinds of bling. For the card on the right, I used a few of the gilded gems. I really liked the gold, that worked really well with the gold trim. And one of my new favorites are the champagne rhinestone basic jewels. They're fun. And I just tucked one of those right in here. And then for the card on the left, this is all about rhinestones because we've got the silver trim down here. So we've got the rhinestones that are up here in the corner. And I thought that worked really, really well. Kind of all comes together with just some really pretty basic colors. I hope you enjoy this design. I really hope that you make some cards with it. I'm gonna bring the other one back in and hold it so that bow does not disappear on me. I'm gonna let that dry and then I will trim it off a little bit. But you can see we've got 3 different color combinations here that work together incredibly well for beautiful Christmas cards that I know your friends and family would absolutely love to get. So I would love to see what you make. And thank you so much for watching. And until next time, stay inky.